Hi, welcome. I hope you had a wonderful 4th of July holiday weekend and that your Monday is starting off well. I'm Mary. I'm a librarian at the Claremont Branch Library, and I'm glad to have you here. Mondays are exciting for me because I get to share poetry with you every Monday. So thanks for joining me. Today's poems will all be poems written by women before 1924. So let's go ahead and get started. I have about 18 poems I'd like to share with you. Many of them are fairly short, but I wanted to get a nice variety of poets that were writing in different years and different centuries. So let's go ahead and start and see what there is to share with you today. So we will start with a poem by Eleanor Wiley, and it's called Beauty. Say not of beauty she is good, or aught but beautiful, or sleek to dove's wings of the wood, her wild wings of a gull. Call her not wicked, that word's touch consumes her like a curse. But love her not too much, for that is even worse. Oh, she is neither good nor bad, but innocent and wild. Enshrine her, and she dies, who had the hard heart of a child. The next poem is by H.D. called Heat. O wind, rend open the heat, cut apart the heat, rend it to tatters. Fruit cannot drop through this thick air, fruit cannot fall into heat that presses up and blunts the points of pears and rounds the grapes. Cut the heat, plow through it, turning it on either side of your path. Then a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay called Afternoon on a Hill. I will be the gladdest thing under the sun. I will touch 100 flowers and not pick one. I will look at cliffs and clouds with quiet eyes, watch the wind bow down the grass, and the grass rise. And when the lights begin to show up from the town, I will mark which must be mine, and then start down. Moving on to a few longer poems, but we have two by Marianne Moore, and the first is called Critics and Connoisseurs. There is a great amount of poetry in unconscious fastidiousness. Certain Ming products, imperial floor coverings of couch, wheel yellow, are well enough in their way, but I have seen something that I like better. A mere childish attempt to make an imperfectly ballasted animal stand up. Similar determination to make a pup eat his meat from the plate. I remember a swan under the willows in Oxford, with flamingo-colored maple, leaf-like feet. It reconnoitered like a battleship. Disbelief and conscious fastidiousness were ingredients in its disinclination to move. Finally, its hardihood was not proof against its proclivity to move more fully apprised such bits of food as the stream bore counter to it. It made away with what I gave it to eat. I have seen this swan, and I have seen you. I have seen ambition without understanding in a variety of forms. Happening to stand by an ant-hill, I have seen a fastidious ant carrying a stick north, south, east, west, till it turned on itself, struck out from the flower bed into the lawn, and returned to the point from which it had started. Then, abandoning the stick as useless and overtaxing, its jaws with a particle of whitewash, pill-like, but heavy, it again went through the same course of procedure. What is there in being able to say that one has dominated the stream in an attitude of self-defense, in proving that one has had the experience of carrying a stick. Second poem by Marianne Moore that I'm going to share with you is called Poetry, and it's the original version of this poem, not the later version that she edited and changed. I, too, dislike it. There are things that are important beyond all this fiddle. Reading it, however, with a perfect contempt for it, one discovers after all, a place for the genuine. Hands that can grasp, eyes that can dilate, hairs that can rise, if it must. These things are important, not because a high-sounding interpretation can be put on them, but because they are useful. When they become so derivative as to become unintelligible, the same thing may be said of all of us, that we do not admire what we cannot understand. The bat, holding on upside down, or in a quest of something to eat, elephants pushing, a wild horse taking a roll, a tireless wolf under a tree, the immovable critic twitching his skin like a horse that feels a flea, the baseball fan, the statistician. Nor is it valid to discriminate against business documents and school books. All these phenomena are important. One must make a distinction. However, when dragged into prominence by half-poets, the result is not poetry. Nor till the poets among us can be literalists of the imagination, above insolence and triviality, and can present, for inspection, imaginary gardens with real toads in them, shall we have. In the meantime, if you demand on the one hand the raw material of poetry in all its rawness, and that which is on the other hand genuine, you are interested in poetry. Move to a few more poems by H.D., also known as Hilda Dolittles, and this poem is called The Helmsman. Oh, be swift. We have always known you wanted us. We fled with our inland flocks. We pastured them in hollows, cut off from the wind and the salt tack of the marsh. We worshipped inland. We stepped past wood flowers. We forgot your tang. We brushed wood grass. We wandered from the pine hills, through oak and scrub oak tangles. We broke the hyssop and bramble. We caught flower and new bramble fruit. In our hair, we laughed as each branch whipped back. We tore our feet in half-buried rocks, and knotted roots and acorn cups. We forgot. We worshipped. We parted green from green. We sought further thickets. We dipped our ankles through leaf mold and earth, and woodbank enchanted us, and the feel of the clefts in the bark, and the slope between tree and tree, and a slender path strung field to field, and wood to wood, and hill to hill, and the forest after it. We forgot for a moment tree resin, tree bark, sweat of a torn branch were sweet to the taste. We were enchanted with fields, the tufts of coarse grass, in the shorter grass. We loved all this. But now our boat climbs, hesitates, drops, climbs, hesitates, crawls back, climbs, hesitates. Oh, be swift. We have always known you wanted us. And the last poem I have of Hilda Dolittles, Helen. All Greece hates the still eyes in the white face, the luster as of olives, where she stands, and the white hands. All Greece reviles the wan face when she smiles, hating it deeper still when it grows wan and white, remembering past enchantments and past ills. Greece sees, unmoved, God's daughter born, born of love, and the beauty of cool feet and slenderest knees. Could love indeed the maid, could only if she were laid, white ash amid funeral cypresses. Moving on to another female poet, we will read a poem by Anne Bradstreet called To My Dear and Loving Husband. If ever two were one, then surely we. If ever man were loved by wife, then thee. If ever wife was happy in a man, compare me with ye women, if you can. I prize thy love more than whole mines of gold, or all the riches that the East doth hold. My love is such that rivers cannot quench, nor aught but love from thee give recompense. Thy love is such I can no way repay. The heavens reward thee manifold, I pray. Then while we live in love let's so persevere, that when we live no more, we may live ever. And a poem by Margaret Cavendish called Of Many Worlds in This World. Just as in a nest of boxes round, degrees of size in each box are found, so in this world may others be, thinner and less still by degree. Although they are not subject to our sense, a world may be no bigger than 2 pence. Nature is curious, and such works may shape, which our dull senses easily escape. For creatures small as atoms may be there, if every one a creature's figure bear. If atoms 4 a world can make, then see what several worlds might in an earring be. For millions of those atoms may be in the head of one small little single pin. And if thus small, then ladies may well wear a world of worlds as pendants in each ear. And next poem is by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and it is called A Musical Instrument. What was he doing, the great god Pan, down in the reeds by the river? Spreading ruin and scattering ban, splashing and paddling with hoofs of a goat, and breaking the golden lilies afloat with the dragonfly on the river. He tore out a reed, the great god Pan, from the deep cool bed of the river. The limpid water turbidly ran, and the broken lilies a-dying lay. And the dragonfly had fled away, ere he brought it out of the river. High on the shore sat the great god Pan, while turbidly flowed the river, and hacked and hewed as a great god can, with his hard, bleak steel at the patient reed, till there was not a sign of the leaf indeed, to prove it fresh from the river. He cut it short, did the great god Pan, how tall it stood in the river, then drew the pith like the heart of a man, steadily from the outside ring, and notched the poor dry empty thing in holes as he sat by the river. This is the way, laughed the great god Pan, laughed while he sat by the river, the only way since gods began to make sweet music they could succeed. Then, dropping his mouth to a hole in the reed, he blew in power by the river. Sweet, 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 O Pan, piercing sweet by the river, blinding sweet, O great god Pan, the sun on the hill forgot to die, and the lilies revived, and the dragonfly came back to dream on the river. Yet half a beast is the great god Pan, to laugh as he sits by the river, making a poet out of a man. The true gods sigh for the cost and pain, for the reed which grows nevermore again, as a reed with the reeds in the river. And this is Emily Bronte, No Coward Soul is Mine. No coward soul is mine, no trembler in the world's storm-troubled sphere. I see heaven's glories shine, and faith shines equal, arming me from fear. O God within my breast, almighty ever-present deity, life that in me has rest, as I, undying life, have power in thee. Vain are the thousand creeds that move men's hearts, unutterably vain, worthless as withered weeds, or idlest froth amid the boundless main, to waken doubt in one, holding so fast by thy infinity, so surely anchored on the steadfast rock of immortality. With wide embracing love, thy spirit animates eternal years, pervades and broods above, changes, sustains, dissolves, creates, and rears. Though the earth and moon were gone, and suns and universes ceased to be, and thou were left alone, every existence would exist in thee. There is not room for death, nor atom that his might could render void, since thou art being and breath, and what thou art may never be destroyed. And a poem by Liss Bogan called Medusa. I had come to the house in a cave of trees, facing a sheer sky. Everything moved, a bell hung ready to strike, sun and reflection wheeled by, when the bare eyes were before me, and the hissing hair held up at a window seen through a door, the stiff bald eyes, the serpents on the forehead, formed in the air. This is a dead scene forever now. Nothing will ever stir. The end will never brighten it more than this, nor the rain blur. The water will always fall, and will not fall, and the tipped bell make no sound. The grass will always be growing for hay, deep on the ground. And I shall stand here like a shadow, under the great balanced day, my eyes on the yellow dust that was lifting in the wind, and does not drift away. Moving on to a poem by Fanny Gravel, A Prayer for Indifference. I ask no kind return of love, no tempting charm to please. Far from the heart those gifts remove, that sighs for peace and ease. Nor peace nor ease the heart can know, that, like the needle true, turns at the touch of joy or woe, but turning, trembles too. Far as distress the soul can wound, 'tis pain in each degree. 'Tis bliss but to a certain bound, beyond is agony. This is a poem called Sheep and Lambs by Catherine Tynan Hinkson. All in the April morning, April airs were abroad. The sheep with their little lambs passed me by on the road. The sheep with their little lambs passed me by on the road. All in an April evening, I thought on the Lamb of God. The lambs were weary and crying, with a weak human cry. I thought on the Lamb of God, going meekly to die. Up in the blue, blue mountains, dewy pastures are sweet. Rest for the little bodies, rest for the little feet. But for the Lamb of God, up on the hilltop green, only a cross of shame, two stark crosses between. All in the April evening, April airs were abroad. I saw the sheep with their lambs, and thought on the Lamb of God. We're getting to the last few poems, and this one is called I Do Not Love Thee by Carolyn Elizabeth Sarah Norton. I do not love thee, no, I do not love thee, and yet when thou art absent, I am sad, and envy even the bright blue sky above thee, whose quiet stars may see thee and be glad. I do not love thee, yet I know not why, Whate'er thou dost seems still well done to me, and often in my solitude I sigh that those I do love are not more like thee. I do not love thee, yet when thou art gone, I hate the sound, though those who speak be dear, which breaks the lingering echo of the tone thy voice of music leaves upon my ear. I do not love thee, yet thy speaking eyes, with their deep, bright, and most expressive blue, between me and the midnight heaven arise, oftener than any eyes I ever knew. I know I do not love thee, yet alas, others will scarcely trust my candid heart, and oft I catch them smiling as they pass, because they see me gazing where thou art. And this is another poem by Emily Bronte, just called Stanza. Often rebuked, yet always back returning to those first feelings that were born with me, and leaving busy chase of wealth and learning for idle dreams of things which cannot be. Today I will seek not the shadow region, its unsustaining vastness waxes drear, and visions rising, legion after legion, bring the unreal world too strangely near. I'll walk, but not in old heroic traces, and not in paths of high morality, and not among the half-distinguished faces, the clouded forms of long past history. I'll walk when my own nature would be leading. It vexes me to choose another guide, where the gray flocks in the ferny glens are feeding, where the wild wind blows on the mountainside. And this is also by Emily Bronte, called The Old Stoic. Riches I hold in light esteem, and love I laugh to scorn. A lust of fame was but a dream that vanished with the morn. And if I pray, the only prayer that moves my lips for me is, leave the heart that now I bear, and give me liberty. Yea, as my swift days near their goal, 'tis all that I implore, in life and death a chainless soul, with courage to endure. And I will end with two poems by Christina Georgina Rossetti. And the first poem is called A Birthday. My heart is like a singing bird, whose nest is in a watered shoot. My heart is like an apple tree, whose boughs are bent with thick-set fruit. My heart is like a rainbow shell that paddles in halcyon sea. My heart is gladder than all these, because my love is come to me. Raise me a dais of silk and down, hang it with vair and purple dyes, carve in it doves and pomegranates, and peacocks with 100 eyes. Work it in gold and silver grapes, in leaves and silver fleur-de-lis, because the birthday of my life is come, and my love is come to me. And for our last poem today, we will do Christina Georgina Rossetti's Aloof. The irresponsive silence of the land, the irresponsive sounding of the sea, speak both one message of one sense to me. Aloof, aloof, we stand aloof, so stand thou too aloof, bound with the flawless band of inner solitude. We bind not thee, but who from thy self-chain shall set thee free? What heart shall touch thy heart? What hand thy hand? And I am sometimes proud, and sometimes meek, and sometimes I remember days of old, when fellowship seemed not so far to seek, and all the world and I seemed much less cold, and at the rainbow's foot lay surely gold, and hope felt strong, and life itself was not weak. So I hope you enjoyed those poems from various women poets from basically the 15th century on to the early 20th century. I enjoyed sharing them with you. I hope you are enjoying these Monday poetry readings. Next Monday, we will be doing poems all somehow dealing with the theme of flowers. So I hope you'll join again for Monday. And until then, have a wonderful week.